Good afternoon, guys. It's Working, bringing you a quick update on Bitcoin. Hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your weekend. Happy Saturday morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're watching this. We are looking at Bitcoin to the US dollar. This is actually the 60-minute chart, looking at the 1-hour chart on Coinbase. And by the way, guys, welcome to all the new subscribers to the channel, guys. Really glad you guys are here. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell in the bottom right-hand corner. We certainly do appreciate your support. Anyway, getting back to the reason you're here, Bitcoin to the US dollar. Looking at the 1-hour chart, I've got it down on the 1-hour chart for a reason here, guys. If we zoom in here, we talked about yesterday the potential, and it's very interesting. I called out yesterday again the potential of this being an inverted head and shoulders. Again, there were some problems with it, but nonetheless, the pattern is there. Volume a little bit off, but the pattern is there, and all of a sudden now we're seeing that repeated over and over again. You guys are sending me emails, and anyway, I appreciate you. I don't want to get off on a rabbit trail. I appreciate you guys showing me that. And if you guys ever do see a clear-cut case, obviously I can't get on people for calling this an inverted head and shoulders because they're just going to say that, you know, we're all looking at the same thing, which I say fair enough. But if you guys ever see a very clear case of somebody literally plagiarizing the word for word what I'm saying or close enough, please send me a link, because I am starting to take action to take care of that type of thing, because it is starting to happen more and more. And while it is a little bit flattering, it's also a bit frustrating, and certainly for the overall crypto community, it can be harmful, because a lot of times those people will try to sell you something. And anyway, you can see how that could divulge into just a bad reputation for the entire crypto space. So we really need to do our best to try to weed out anybody that's basically trying to scam people. And I would view that in analysts as well. There's a lot of them out there. So anyway, guys, with that, don't want to get off on that too much. Going to Bitcoin to US dollar, let's swing back out to the 4-hour here. So we looked at I was starting with the hourly for a reason. All right, so looking at the hourly, guys, we can see that we're looking at this pattern a couple different ways. Let me take that 21 EMA off there first. We can see that we can look at this pattern a couple different ways, guys. First way some people are looking at is we can call this potentially a symmetrical triangle here. We draw it right by the wicks. The only problem with that is we do have this one pesky wick that came right outside. But other than that, guys, that's acceptable, right? We could call this a potential symmetrical triangle. And of course, that would have an equal opportunity break to the up or to the downside here. Now, as I said yesterday, guys, we do have potential for an inverted head and shoulders here as well. This, of course, would suggest, as we talked about, a break to about 12,000, 12,100, as we discussed yesterday. And again, as I know, all of a sudden now a lot of people are starting to talk about that. But anyway, I digress. But this, with knowing that I've got this potential inverted head and shoulders, which yes, it does have some volume problems. Yes, it's not the prettiest right shoulder here at all, but still technically it could complete, and we could technically call this an inverted head and shoulders. Assuming it was to break out here in the next 8 to 12 hours or so. If not, then of course we have to reevaluate. But as of right now, I'm starting to look at this more as a potential ascending triangle here, and I do think that potentially that is probably the better way to look at this. And if that is the case, of course, the favor would be to a break to the upside clearly, and we'd be looking at about 11,050-ish as our 11,100, 11,050 as our next target. Now that 11,050, if in fact we do break up 11,050 to 11,100, that is going to be a very significant zone. And that is significant for a couple reasons. Pulling out here a little bit, if I go swing high, swing low of this latest swing high, so the smaller structure here, we can see that right around 11,100, that perfectly lines up with the 50 fib level, guys. So there's no question that this is going to very likely would be an area of resistance. That being said, if this thing does end up breaking up, and breaking up on volume, breaking up with a vengeance, completing that inverted head and shoulders, or even breaking out on that ascending triangle, guys, that could potentially bring us up and above that 11,500. And in my opinion, that's going to be the real test. If we do end up breaking up here, of course, I'm going to be watching for a potential bull trap where price hits this zone and completely reverses course. So be very, very careful. Yes, of course, a play to the upside here, targeting about 11,050 to 11,100, certainly make a strong case for that, but just be very, very careful if and when that does happen. And I would increase your stop loss, because if that is going to be a bear trap, or excuse me, a bull trap on the breakup, the reversal is very likely going to happen around 11,100, 11,050-ish, somewhere thereabouts. If we get a 4-hour open and close above 11,050, or to be safer, probably 11,100 to be fair, because I'd really like to clear this 50 fib level. If that does happen, then of course I'm going to get more more medium-term bullish, and then I'm going to be looking at targets around that $12,000 area. Of course, we have to get past 11,500. 11,500 could reject price as well. Of course, we can see that we have have a golden pocket, the all-important golden pocket sitting right there as well, the golden ratio and the golden pocket. So that's nothing to ignore, and certainly could be something that provides a very, very big barrier for bulls if we do break up. However, my bias would still be, if we get a 4-hour open and close above 11,100, would still be to the upside, at least targeting about 12,000, and I have to reevaluate at 12,000. To the downside, if we do for some reason break down out of this does end up being that symmetrical triangle there. We do get a break to the downside. I'm going to be watching for a target, as we said, at about at least 9,950. That would be that is where I'd start looking for a potential bear trap. Potential price breaking down, completely reversing course, and then heading right back up. So if you are playing that short, which I wouldn't do, to be honest with you, but if you are looking to play this short to the downside, again, make sure you don't get too greedy. And if and when we do come back and tap this $9,950 zone, I would increase that stop loss, and I'd be very, very cognizant of a potential bear trap. So I just want to kind of give you both those scenarios. Now coming over here and looking at actually that's the dominance chart. That's not what I want. There we go. Looking at the 4-hour, where this is looking at our moving averages, exponential moving average. Of course, this is looking at the 50 simple crossing below the 200 simple. We had our traditional death cross that happened back on July the 18th. Of course, we discussed that. We talked about that, and of course, I told you at that time I explained the difference between a traditional death cross and then, of course, what a lot of people are starting to use now is a death cross. Instead of the 50 and 200 simple, they're using the 50 and 200 exponential, and that is not yet. Here we have the 50 and 200 exponential, and that is not yet crossed yet. Of course, this has been that epic battle we've been talking about for days now between the bulls and the bears, guys, and it truly is an epic battle. As much as I use that phrase and overuse that phrase, guys, this is really what it should be reserved for, because this is truly incredible to watch. So yes, I am giving in this instance, I am giving in the short term the nod to the bulls. In the medium term, I am still a little bit agnostic. In the short term, a nod to the bulls, though, looking for a potential break to the upside here. But again, guys, not necessarily going all in on that. I'm very skeptical. We could break to the downside here, and I know how frustrating that is to hear from an analyst. I really do. But until we clear this zone, until we clear above that 11,100 or below that 9,950 decisively, I don't mean a wick, but I mean a decisive break, at least a 4-hour open and close above one of those two zones. You know, in the midterm, I have to remain agnostic. But in the short term here, just in the immediate short term here, as far as which way price might break out of this, yes, I'm leaning more bullish here, just for most of the reasons that I've just discussed. However, if we do get that exponential 50 crossing below the 200 and get that death cross there, confirming the simple death cross over here, guys, then of course, yes, as everybody seems to be saying, of course, we will be looking at much lower targets. We will be looking at targets down there at at least 9,400, if not, of course, targets on the CME gap to close that $8,500 gap, which of course we have to show every single video here, just in case we have newcomers at 8,500 to 88, to about 8,900. Between 8,900 and 8,500, we do have that CME gap that personally I would like to see closed before we continue to the upside. That being said, Bitcoin does not care what I personally think. Pulling out, guys, pulling out on the 4-hour here, going swing low, swing high. We can see that we are sitting right there at that 50 fib level, guys, which we've discussed numerous times. We can see also right around 11,500. We got the 382 fib, guys, which would be significant to break above if, in fact, it does end up breaking above. And of course, the reason we've had this $9,950 zone, the reason that it's held up so well, so tried and true, is because we have the all-important golden pocket that has been sitting there, guys, just acting as an anchor, relentless holding up for the bulls. Even though we did have a breakdown here, guys, it's again was able to push price back up above here, and this is going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. And this is why I say until we do get that the second time, this decisive break below that 9,950, and if that does happen, I do not think it holds a second time here. I do think we at least come back down here to 9,400, if not this $9,800 zone that we've been talking about. And at that point, guys, I'm going to be looking at a couple things. Of course, if we get a decisive break below 9,950, I will be looking for a drop down to 9,400, a decisive break below 9,400. I will be looking for a drop down to 8,900. That's where it gets tricky. Between 8,900, as we discussed yesterday, and 8,500, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of zone. There's a lot of potential to bounce there. So it could literally bounce 8,800, 8,700, 8,600, 8,500. Any one of those points, guys, we could see a massive reversal. So I'm just looking at that between 8,900 and 8,500. If we do get down there, this is one massive pocket for a one massive trampoline, basically, for price to springboard off of. Now, as we discussed yesterday as well, everybody else is looking at the same thing, and I'm not going to go back and forth into the reverse psychology. I mean, we could say because everyone's looking at it, of course, it's going to get overshot, and then, of course, as we discussed yesterday, we could say, yeah, but everyone knows that everyone's looking at it, so no one thinks it's going to get bounced on because everyone thinks that everyone's looking for a bounce, and therefore, because everyone thinks it's going to get overshot, it won't get overshot and actually will bounce. So, I mean, we could go layers upon layers upon layers, as we discussed yesterday. The bottom line is, technically and in any other way, between 8,900 and 8,500 technically is a very good zone to stack buy orders in there. Could it break? Absolutely. That's why you have stop losses, or if you're adding to your long-term hold position, even if it does break down below there, guys, of course, you know, that's just trading. You add to your long position, and over time, that still will have been a decent area to buy, especially once you see Bitcoin taking out, this $13,800 to $14,000 zone. I mean, I think it's going to be sky's the limit up to about 16.2 at that point. So my point is, this is a very, very, in my opinion, this is a very, for me personally, it's not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but this is the zone between 89 and 8,500 that I'm extremely interested to add to my long position in. Now, looking to the upside here, pulling all the way back out, guys, pulling our fib extension out, just seeing if we can find anything that looks relevant, and I believe that we can. Again, pulling our fib extension, we can see that we're finding resistance right there at the first fib at the 236, and we can see where is the next major area of resistance right there at 11,500. 11,500 is, I believe, where everything changes, where I believe I will get more midterm, much more midterm bullish, even though, 11,050, 11,100, of course, technically that'll be my bias will be to the upside, but I think technical analysis would be would prove that bias to be to the upside, or would support that bias being to the upside if and when we break above 11,500, just based on this basic chart here, as well as based on very, very clear what has been a very relevant zone acting as support resistance numerous times at about 11,500. Now, one thing I do find very, very interesting about this, and this is where I don't like Elliott Wave, and you guys know this, I don't like Elliott Wave in the crypto market. That being said, if you are an Elliott Wave trader, you're looking at this as a couple different ways. You're looking at this as a potential top in a reversal, and then more potentially coming back down to continue down into a bear market. If that's the case, you're looking at this as what? You're looking at this as a 1, 2, and this should be the 3, right? We'd be looking at this as a potential wave 3 coming all the way back down here, and that may end up being the case. We'll have to wait and see kind of how that plays out. But if that is that third wave, if this is in fact the third wave, it doesn't really. Typically the third wave would be the longest and the strongest wave if you're an Elliott trader, and a third wave would target, if you pull your fib extension, a third wave would typically target the 1618. So if I grab that extension and I just go like this, and I start looking at targets. Let me get right on price there. And let me make sure price is right on up here. There we go. And I start looking at targets. What do we see here? We can see that this potential third wave came down and hit right at the 1-to-1. Basically a 1-to-1 from this first potential wave 1 here. So wave 1 and wave 3, again, potentially would be equal. Now, you rarely see that. You do see it. It does happen. But typically, if this is going to be the start of a massive bear market, you would expect that third wave to just explode and at least hit that 1618, which you can see is down here at about 6,500. And of course, as of right now, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all. So again, this would suggest, and rather than looking at this as a 1, 2, potential 3, 4, and 5 for the way down, that would suggest the other Elliott Wave theory, of course, and we discussed this before, as this instead is just a healthy correction, a nice ABC, and now we're continuing to the upside. So that would, again, this just kind of a side note there. And again, I'm not a fan of Elliott Wave, and I am not an Elliott Wave expert by any stretch of the imagination. I want to be very, very clear on that, guys. Don't claim to be, am not. Yes, do I use it sometimes in my trading? Absolutely. Just to reference other things? Absolutely. To confirm things sometimes? Absolutely. Do I think it's as you know, some people do, is it the only thing I would ever look at? Absolutely not. If you're an Elliott Wave trader in this market and that's all you're going by, you will get wrecked. All right, zooming back into our moving averages, exponential moving averages, guys, we can see that we are now above on the 4 hour, above the 50 simple. You know, that is technically bullish. I'd like to see more of a decisive break above here, guys. We're not quite there yet, and really I'd like to see a test of this 200 simple and a price getting above that. If we get a 4 hour open and close above the 200 simple, which right now is around 11,000 ish, so that would coincide nicely with our $11,050 to $11,100 zone. If we can get a 4 hour open and close above that 200 simple, guys, of course, that would be an extremely, extremely bullish sign. To wait and see how it plays out here. But as of right now, guys, yeah, we are seeing some bullish momentum here. We are seeing the 8 exponential crossing above the 821 exponential. So that is, again, that is a bullish sign temporarily. But really, the thing that's getting my eye, what I talked about yesterday, is we are seeing the 821 and 55 exponential all converging on each other here, guys, as well as the 50 simple, all converging. And typically, anytime you see this, guys, you're going to see a massive larger move to come. Now, the only thing we're not seeing is the Bollinger Band start to bottleneck, but we can see that the bottom Bollinger Band is starting to curve there. The top Bollinger Band not quite getting there yet, but that could happen very, very quickly, especially if we go sideways for much longer, which I seriously doubt, guys. I'm going to be looking for some kind of resolution to this pattern within the next 12 hours, 12 to 24 hours, more likely 12 hours, but we'll have to wait and see kind of how this ends up playing out. Let's zoom out here to the daily. Looking at the daily, guys, we're still unable to break up above that 21 exponential, but it's still, the bulls are now playing right off that, the kind of finding support off the 8-day EMA here. So between the 8-day and the 21-day EMA, guys, kind of acting as support and resistance, and of course a break above either or, a decisive break above either or, of course, would be very, very, very significant. So let's wait and see kind of how this plays out here, guys. But certainly, again, we're also starting to see, even on the daily here, the converging of the 55 with the 21 here, again, also suggesting a larger move, very, very likely to come here. And of course, as I've been pointing out every single time here, guys, we're looking at the weekly. We are still above. Bulls are still defending this 8-week EMA, which is extremely, extremely bullish. Of course, we've broken through here before. Yes, we did create a lower low than the 2-week prior candle here, which was a bearish sign. But again, the bulls able to push it up here. So I would say if we can close, certainly if we can close above the 8-week EMA, that would be very, very bullish. Now, what I'd really, really like to see as a I'd really like to see the weekly candle close above about really this prior weekly candle here, which is about 10,800, 10,900-ish, somewhere thereabouts. Of course, I'd like to see it close above that. That would be more of a bullish sign. If we can get it to close above 11,000, of course, that'd be a great psychological and would clearly put us above the open of July, the July 1st weekly and the close of the July 24th weekly. Of course, that would be a sign of continuation to the upside. So let's wait and see. Of course, if we do end up closing, though, below this 8-week EMA, guys, that is not going to be a good sign at all. So let's see what happens over the next 24 to 36 hours as this weekly candle does play out over the weekend here. Checking the long and shorts chart, not too much to report, guys. Shorts basically just kind of consolidating, waiting for a longer move or a larger move. Longs, or excuse me, that was the longs chart. Now the shorts chart basically doing the same thing, kind of consolidating sideways. Everybody's kind of sitting back and waiting for that larger move to come, guys. You can also see that confirmed with volume. If I come over here and I refresh our daily volume sitting at about 18.3 billion for the day. If we go back and look at there we go. Historically, what we've been trending down here, guys, we're trending down 25 yesterday, 20 today, looking at 18. So certainly the trend is to the downside as we're looking for resolution out of this consolidation pattern we have here. We can also see pulling up volume here on the 4 hour. We can see the volume trend also slowly declining. Although to be fair, we did have a little bit of an uptick here, potentially hinting at a break to the upside. And this is what I'd need to see for price to confirm an inverted head and shoulders and not a bull trap. So if we break up here on very, very little volume here, guys, again, watch out for the bull trap and watch out for this 11,050 as the reversal zone. However, if we do end up breaking up and we get a massive spike in volume here, guys, and really the one to be watching is more on the hourly or the 30-minute chart, because the 4 hour is not going to reflect it right away. So you want to look at the hourly and the 40-minute. And again, we did kind of spike up here in the hourly. You want to see us a nice spike in hourly volume, something like we saw back here to the upside. If in fact we do get that, that is going to be a confirmed breakout to the upside and will very, very likely take out this 11,050 zone. And of course, then we're going to be looking at 11,500 as the next likely target to need to take out. All right, checking the daily RSI. Not really good. Actually, let me talk about the RSI in a minute. Daily histogram, as we pointed out yesterday, guys, potential for bullish divergence as point to point here and point to point here. We discussed that yesterday, though. I think that has played out. So even if we do break up, I don't think that's going to have anything to do with it. But it certainly doesn't. Certainly doesn't. Hurt the bulls. I mean, that certainly, if anything, would help their case. However, I do think that's already played out, so not putting a whole lot of weight into that. That being said, of course, we are seeing the histogram, as you would expect, continue to tick to the upside. We are seeing the signal line, MACD line, start to have a nice little curvature there. So again, not too much on the histogram, not too much on the MACD, but still, if anything, favoring the bulls. Looking at the RSI here, RSI is in a very interesting position, guys. I'm kind of, as I pointed this out, I haven't pointed this out in a while, but I did point this out. I don't know, many times, starting about, a few weeks ago, or excuse me, a few months ago. And what I was pointing out was this point on price right about here. Ever since this point on price, guys, we can see it's kind of acted, again, it's more of a zone than it is really a particular price point, but it's somewhere around 49.7 to 51-ish, somewhere thereabouts, and this is on the daily RSI. We can see that acted as a major area in the past, acted as a major area of resistance until price did end up breaking up above it. And actually, I'm sorry, that's not where I wanted it, right about here. Now, with very, very brief interludes, but for the most part, this was a very, very relevant zone, right around 50-ish, between 49 and 50-ish, guys, a very, very relevant zone. We're briefly breaking up above it in the bear market, but of course getting slapped down very, very, very quickly until finally we broke back up above it here in February of 2019. We came back down and tested it, and that's where resistance turned into support, and that's what ushered in this nice little bull run that we've been in for about 7 months now. And of course, we've wicked below it here briefly, but the bull's always able to push back above. Of course, testing it here, almost testing it here, push above, testing it here, push above. Of course, now almost testing it here, not quite, and then we broke down. And then this scared me a bit. Price came back up. What was support turned into resistance right here, and has been bouncing off the top of it ever since. Now, of course, if you look in here, you can also see this does have kind of a bullish posture in that we are, if I zoom in here, kind of making a tiny little inverted head and shoulders on the RSI. Now, yes, you can paint a head and shoulders pattern and various patterns on the RSI. Of course, I don't put nearly as much weight on it. Nonetheless, this is significant in that if we can break above this zone, and then even if we test it or just continue to the upside, if we can break above this zone and stay above this zone for at least a few days, that would not be insignificant. That would be a very big sign that a bottom is likely in, and continuation to the upside is very, very, very likely. And I would say if we do take out this prior test right here at about 53.3 on the daily RSI, if we can get above that and stay above that, guys, again, that's going to usher in what I believe will be a nice little uptrend to very likely take out that $13,850 zone and probably head up to around the low $16,000 area. That's a big if, though. We got a lot of work to do between now and then, guys, but just kind of giving you an idea of the things that I'm watching. Now, pulling out on the weekly here, guys, the weekly, just as it is right now, the weekly does look pretty bullish, I do have to say. And again, this would, as of right now, especially if we can get the candle closing, if this candle closes green, for the most part, it's going to be fairly bullish. But again, we'd really need to see it close at least above 10,650. But again, as you can see, pulling out on the weekly, let me just get rid of all this noise. There we go. There we go. Much more clear. All right, so you can just kind of see, again, looking at the overall macro level here, we can see that if we can just get above this zone right here, this major area of resistance right here. Actually, I think this is going to bring all my tools back on. Yes, it is. I didn't want that. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, right here, guys, you can just see if we can close above that, really $11,000, really $10,900 would be extremely, extremely bullish and suggest continuation to the upside. We can also see to the downside, what was that major area of consolidation consolidation that what was resistance that we wanted to see turn into support. It was right here, right in this major area right here. Where did price come back down and test? It literally came down, tested, and had a strong bounce right off the top of that zone. Now, could we come in deeper? Yes. And to be honest with you guys, for a more longer term picture, I would like to see us take out the mid $8,500 zone just to get rid of that damn gap on the CME chart, just so we can continue to the upside, just so everyone's not so concerned about pricing. I think that would be a much healthier situation. That being said, Bitcoin doesn't care about how I feel, and so its thing could just continue to the upside. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But my point is, you can do that once you get rid of all the noise and you just come down to basic support resistance. We can see that we're caught between major resistance here, major support here, which was tested, and of course we just need to get a decisive break of one or the other for a major continuation down or a major continuation up. And to the downside, we've got a lot more room, guys. We could come down here much further. We could come down basically all the way down to about the mid 7,000s, and things could be just fine. You could still call that a healthy correction, still call that a nice healthy bounce to the upside. We start breaking that, then of course, as you can see on the chart here, guys, we start dropping down below about 7,200, and things start to get a little scary. And of course, we can see back here, guys, breaking below about 6,500. That's where I start to believe this whole thing here is not the start of a larger bull run, and we of course will be coming back down to test the prior lows, but we're nowhere near there yet, guys. My point in all of this, once you get rid of all the noise, it does come down to just basic support resistance. We've got to either clear this resistance for the bears to have their continuation in their party, or we have to clear this we have to clear this support for the bears to have their party. We have to clear this resistance for the bulls to have their party, and it really sometimes is that simple. All right, so to wrap Bitcoin up in a bow, how am I playing this, guys? Basically, let me get rid of that. There we go. Basically, I'm going to be looking for a move up to, I just deleted that. Stand by. Okay, there we go. So basically, my bias is a break to the upside here. I do think that there's a good chance we come up here and test at least 11,050. We're going to be watching for a break on volume, and we're going to be, if we don't have that volume, we're going to be watching for a bear trap at 11,050 to 11,100-ish. If we get a decisive open and close above 11,050 or 11,100-ish, somewhere thereabouts, a decisive 4-hour open and close above that, guys, then of course I'm going to be picking targets to at least 11,500, and I'm going to start eyeballing the mid 12,000s, but really we need to get above 12,000 first. To the downside, guys, I'm going to be watching a potential breakdown. If we do break down, I'm going to be watching for a move down to 9,950. I do think it potentially bounces at least one time off of that zone. Of course, if that does break, guys, I do think we're coming back down, of course, to this $9,400 zone. We may get a bounce off that zone, but I have my doubts as to whether or not that'll hold. Of course, we're going to, if that does break, I'm going to be looking for a breakdown here to between 8,900 and 8,500, and that's my massive buy zone. If we do break down there, guys, stacking orders between 8,900 and 8,500, expecting a very big bounce. That's the buy zone for me if the bears do have their way in this market. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, guys. I'm going to go ahead and wrap my Bitcoin analysis there. Let's quickly get to your comments. Let me try to get it. Josh says, always refreshing to hear your thoughts. Hey, thank you, Josh. Javier says, I think a nice correction would be quite helpful. It's stalled right now, but it should be corrected during the weekend. Thanks for such great videos and calling it hours before anyone else on YouTube. Hey, thank you, Javier. I really appreciate that, man. And yeah, we'll see how it plays out here. Mr. Sylvia says, when looking at the CME chart, which one is the appropriate to use, 1 hour or 4 hour? I mean, really depends. I mean, are you talking about trading off the CME chart, or are you just talking about in relation to the gap? If you're talking about in relation to the gap, I would say, really the daily and the 4 hour are the two that I look at the most. If you're talking about trading, then basically the same thing would apply to the CME chart as it does on regular charts. But hey, thanks for the question there, Captain. Joe says a lot of you YouTubers repeat your work after they watch your posts. I think you do the best on the net. Thanks for all your hard work. Hey, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And yeah, I know that. And I've gotten a lot of you, especially a lot of you guys, emailing me, pointing out specifics, and I'm taking action on that. I don't want to say anything more than that. But for those of you that have emailed me links to people that are blatantly plagiarizing, and it's got to be blatant, guys. I mean, otherwise there's just not much I can do other than just kind of publicly humiliate. And I think I don't want to stoop to that level. But I will, if you see out and out plagiarizing, then please let me know, and I will do steps to take that. And you can always, if you don't want to do it publicly, shoot me out a private email. Of course, you can find my email in the description of any one of my videos. All right, Johnny says, thank you, first of all, for your info. You've been absolutely spot on. I was wondering if you could cover Litecoin for the short term running up to the halving and what your thoughts would be after the halving, looking at Litecoin and Bitcoin, how they previously reacted. Yeah, let's quickly do that. All right, quickly looking at Litecoin in the past, I believe the halving was August, sometime in August, to August the 26th, I believe. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, August the 26th of 2015 was the Litecoin halving. And basically, this is kind of what you would expect to see, guys. You see August the 26th of 2015, that was, that was right here. And so basically what you saw was you saw a massive run up in Litecoin. I mean, a massive run up in Litecoin prior to the halving, because what do most people do in crypto, guys? What do? You buy the rumor, sell the news, right? And that's exactly what we saw here. We saw Litecoin jump to almost 2,000%, 1,935% prior in the months prior to the halving here. And then before the halving happened, remember the halving happened on August the 26th. So literally almost a month prior to that, Litecoin just dumped, and it dumped massively. It dumped, let's see. Yeah, I mean, it dumped about 70%. And then, of course, the halving happened, and basically it was flat. It jumped a little bit more during the halving, a little bit further, but not much at all. Basically, it was just flat, a little bit more to the downside. Then it moved sideways forever, and then finally, of course, it exploded with the bull run in 2017. So you can. This is just basic: buy the rumor, sell the news, and this is just everybody wanting to get out before the news happened, because everybody knows that people are buying the rumor, selling the news. This time, it's a little bit different this time around, in that we're not quite seeing that. And what I mean is, obviously we're not seeing that massive 1,000% run up prior to the halving, guys, because people realize that, yes, it's a big deal. Yes, it can be a big deal, but it's probably a little bit more overhyped than it needs to be. And you can make a bullish and bearish case either way. So, of course, we saw the market bottom out, but this really, yes, Litecoin was leading the way here once the bull market started here back in mid-December, late December. Litecoin certainly led the way. And yeah, you could say that was maybe because of the halving, but we did not see, anywhere near the kind of gains that we saw prior to the halving back in 2015. Now, we are seeing the similarities are that we saw a run up, and of course we're seeing a drop, but prior to the run up here. Now, what's going to be interesting is to see how price reacts now, because if history is any guide, it should continue to dump here for the next month until it happens next month, and then sideways movement, and then a continuation to the upside. I think more likely it's going to basically follow Bitcoin, and very likely maybe a good indicator as to what Bitcoin is going to do. I'd love to see it split off. We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, just looking at the chart, I will say that this does have some potential for a very nice bounce here. We can see that price bounced right where you would expect. We have a supply zone sitting right down, or excuse me, a demand zone sitting right down here on Litecoin. This is between about that $75 and $65 zone. Price came down, wicked right into it, and then of course we had a very, very nice bounce. Now we'll have to wait and see kind of how this plays out, but of course this is an area of nice support down here. So I would say if it does drop down here between 75 and really the lower 60s, of course I still think that's a not a bad order, or not a bad time to potentially scoop up a little bit. But of course this would technically be a third test if this did happen. Let's say it happened next week, because technically we've tested it once. This would really tested it twice, even though it's kind of a front run here. If we come back down and test it a third time, especially deeply, could it bounce? Yes, absolutely. If you're looking to add to your long position, yeah, accumulate for the long haul, not a bad idea. But if this does break down, of course the chart on the weekly suggests a drop down to about $55. And of course at 55 we do have another very, very, on the weekly chart here, a very, very nice accumulation zone down here between about 55 and 45. Now, if 45 breaks down, of course, then we're getting much, much lower. But again, that would be your secondary accumulation zone. And if you're looking for the long haul, maybe allocate a little bit to buy here, hoping for a bounce, but allocate a lot more to buy here if things do turn very, very bearish here in the short term. And if history isn't a guide, it will drop a little bit further. But again, we are in a completely different market than we were back in 2015, a completely different market. So I really, really feel uncomfortable trying to analyze what happened then versus what is happening now. I mean, the markets are, it might as well be a completely different asset. It is that different. Just quickly looking to see if we can find anything significant on price, on divergence here. Nothing too significant there. Let me quickly check the 4 hour here. 4 hour is showing a little bit of hidden bearish divergence. This being a downtrend, this being overall uptrend. Of course, price hitting there, but we could say that did play out a little bit there. So actually, I'm not really concerned with that. That did, for the most part, that did play out. So yeah, now we do, that little drop there did kind of play that out there. Of course, I would have expected a little bit further drop, but nonetheless, I would have expected a drop down more to like 85, 88-ish, and that may still happen. We'll have to wait and see. But it does look like it's hitting up on the larger time frames and on the smaller time frames. We're hitting up against major resistance right now, very similar to Bitcoin, to where if Litecoin can get a 4 hour open and close, I would say above 105. If we get a 4 hour open and close above 105, I would say it's going to be a fairly quick rise to about 120. I would say that'd be your signal to go in long, and we will find some resistance about 120 to the upside. I'd have to reevaluate depending on how price reacted at 120. And again, to the downside, we could see a temporary drop if this does. If Bitcoin breaks bearish, I think Litecoin will as well, and we could see a temporary drop. I'd look for a drop down to about short-term time frames, down to about 88 to 89. If we don't get a bounce off of that, of course, it'll be a very quick drop down to that's maybe $77, $78 range. We'll have to wait and see kind of how that ends up playing out. All right, hopefully that answers your question. Mr. Sylvia says, choppy, death cross. My TBD says, excellent update as usual. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you, my friend. Let's see, Uber Design says, excellent as usual. Thanks for stopping by and helping, or thank you coming from a newbie just starting my journey. Well, best of luck to you, Uber by Design, man. Best of luck, my friend. Mr. Sylvia, your TA is like an ILS, down to minimums. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's for all of you that don't know. Mr. Sylvia is a pilot as well, so that's kind of an inside joke. Let's see. Intro is too loud. I apologize, man. If anyone knows how to adjust the volume on QuickTime in relation to an overall video, let me know. Let's see. We might go down to the ground before next go around. We'll see, Mr. Sylvia. Luke says, love the analysis, man. Do you by chance watch Eric Crown's videos before you upload? Eric Crown. Man, this guy keeps coming up. Eric Crown, Crypto Cave keeps coming up. And yeah, I've watched some of his videos. They're very, very long. And so I've not gotten through it, in all fairness. I haven't gotten through one, but the couple that I have watched, he sounds phenomenal. I mean, he really does. And I mean, I know that maybe is counter trend to what to me building my channel, but hey, man, give props where props is due. I do think that from what I've seen and from what I've heard from people, he does a phenomenal job. I have nothing bad to say about him. But to be fair, I haven't watched him that much, so I don't want to endorse anything. I probably shouldn't have said anything. All right, ZoomVoo says, fair warning, I will start a paid group and just regurgitate your daily analysis word for word. Charge $49.95 per month. Easier money than trading. Don't worry, I'll leave you a little something in your tip jar. Hey, thanks, Zoom. I appreciate that, man. You just give me half, we'll call it fair. CJ says, that's a joke, by the way. CJ says, another amazing working. Hey, thanks, CJ. Let's see. Eric says, thank you, Errol. Let's see. Raj says, FYI, it's exponential, not exponential. That's very true, Raj. Let's see. Rubaid Sadiq says, thanks a ton, Captain. Don't worry about names. I don't mind if you mispronounce my name wrong. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Again, no disrespect. The work you're doing is tremendous, and I'm totally grateful to you. Just wish you keep doing it. Thank you. Hey, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you stopping by. Freger says, thanks a lot for the TA yesterday. I made a good profit scalping from 10,650, even though the first wick above hit my stop loss. Congratulations, man. And truly, congrats, man. That's awesome. I'm very, very glad to hear that, man. And please, guys, if you guys have experiences like that, let me know, because that's what motivates me to keep doing these videos, man. I'm glad to hear. Let's see, John says, sometimes the weekend has some big moves, jump started direction, maybe on the sidelines. It seems, though. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. It does look to me like we are going to have at least some confirmation out of this 4-hour consolidation pattern that we're seeing. We should have some resolution over this weekend. Mr. Sylvia says, I think that some people are cloning your TI. I know, man. I know. And thank you. And by the way, like I said, send me a link. If you see some very, very clear plagiarism, please send me a link via email so I can do something about that. Joshua Stephen Ward says, thanks, working volume of music sounded fine. As a person who's credited edited videos a bit myself, I know volume with media can be tedious. It is tedious. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things there. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, would appreciate an upvote. If you have enjoyed this content, guys, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And as always, if you'd like to support the channel, guys, that's what helps and keeps this free. You can find the tip jar in the description section of any one of the videos. Till next time, guys, please trade safe. Have a wonderful weekend. This is Working, signing out.